very much for joining us, Chris. You're here to present on mallee seeps, and we're about to go out into the paddock. And what are you going to do? You're going to show us how to dig a Piezomiter?
Yes, we'll do that, but we'll also be looking at what are the key things, the way you assess a landscape to work out how to best manage that mallee seep and give everyone the tools that they can use, particularly with the mallee seep's decision tree, to work their way through to come up with the best solutions. Fantastic.
We've also got some seed here. We're going to give that out later on, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to establish Piezomiter and tall wheat grass. So for people that are in the Underbull and Manangatang area in the next couple of days, tomorrow we're at Underbull, Friday, is it Friday? Friday we're at Manangatang, so come along and we'll be doing the same thing again. This is a very hands-on concept around fixing mallee seeps.
Yes.
So love to see you all there. So stay tuned today. We'll also be coming to you Facebook Live, Twitter Live to show you how to dig that Piezomiter and also talk a little bit about those marks that will help re-establish seep areas. So see you soon. What are we doing here?
Okay, so here we are at a site, lucky this, we visited this a number of times as a bare scold, even with the Brownswell crop comping a few years ago. And so yeah, we've got Piezomiter established here. As you can see, this is a salt tolerant grass and very fine seeded. As you can see, some of this I've seeded a couple of times just by whippersnippering stuff and just going around and throwing it around, and it's established. But do you actually try and sow this properly with the machine or not? Okay, so all of this is just by me doing it by hand. In terms of spreading seed around, I think it's always good with pucks is just to roughen up that soil. So whether if it's wet like this, you don't want to get a whole tractor on there, but you can use it like a four-wheel motor bike with the harrows like I showed in the pictures. But if you can get it rough, then you throw the seed out, and either if it gets rained in, or you might even just re-roll it in or something, or just put the harrows over it again, it'll press in. What we find is that the seed will find its niche, and so if there's a bit of rain, there'll be enough salt wash out of the high bits, to then get that established. And once it gets established, it takes control, and then it'll just fill in. And so this has gone from bare scored, like over where Kylie is here. You can see how white that is. Some people have done, and it will fill in. Sometimes on your worst scolds, it might take a few years to get it fully covered, but it is good at finding its niche and growing. And sometimes we've sown stuff one year and it hasn't been to the next year that it's actually got the right conditions to germinate and grow, and then it's got going. The other thing too is I'm just surprised to see this creek coming through with the water coming down here. So this is, as I showed with the NDVI, this is a part of a system of water, of a localised catchment, that the Blanchetown clay is just holding this water up and flowing through the system, going on further down there. So we won't completely solve this problem until we get a high water use option like a loosened strip that's blocking this. And I think, Lockie, we've actually talked about, where are you, Lockie? It's actually higher than the big scalded area just over the hill. If you could get the loosen established there, it might be enough to actually stop this without having to put a strip in between. But I guess ideally I'd be looking to perhaps run a strip of loosen right around here to really knock this in the head and drop this water table.
Sand in to try and get that germination to happen, like bring some good sand in over top.
You can drive your tractor in. I'm not driving mine.
If it was an earlier seep situation and it's only just starting to scald out, and you don't want to go into the trouble of having to get Piezomiter established and you still put the drop through, I think that sand on top is a really good option, as long as you're doing something to stop the flow of water in, like a loosened strip or whatever. But in this case, I think this will fill in without any more sand on top. I think that there's enough seed around. If there was a lot of area like this, I'd probably just try and roughen it and maybe even just drag some of the seed heads through here. But even just the fact it's got sheep on here is probably roughening it up and catching some seed. It'll find a niche and get going. So like, this is actually filled in since, I don't know, mid last year. A lot of this was still quite bare. So yeah, I don't think that I wouldn't be worried about bringing in extra sand here. And my experience with this sort of stuff is that this soil will turn back to be not so salty within 12 months of good cover, as long as it doesn't have a lot of salty water continuing to feed into it. Then it will return. So he's still got a challenge to actually stop the flow of water with some loosened strips through. So yeah, here we are at Alawoona on a site which is scalded out. And when did that happen, Farmer Lockie?
So 5 years ago.
About 5 years ago, started to go out, and now is a bare, unproductive scald and growing. And did anyone actually bring their piece of paper which has got the
5 steps?
I'd say strong no.
Sorry, I should have brought one because we actually have an MDV on this. But so in terms of the 5-point plan as to how you assess a mallee seep, can anyone remember what the first point is that you need to, if you're going to say we're going to start assessing how we manage this? What's the first thing?
Is it a mallee seep?
Is it a mallee seep? That's right. So we just we need to rule out that it's regional groundwater salinity, Trip Creek line salinity, or a dry saline magnesia country. And I guess when I look at this, obviously we know there's seeps in the area, we know the history, and it's pretty obvious that this is a water table related here. I've just started to dig a bit of a hole, and we're getting into some fairly sloppy clay right there. So it's obviously driven by a water table, and just looking at the landscape around as well, it's sitting in this mid-slope area under some gutless sand hills. Can I call them gutless?
Sure can.
Okay. That so it makes sense that it's a mallee seep. So all right, we've got to the first point, that we're happy that it is actually a mallee seep. So what's the second thing that we need to? Can anyone remember from this morning's session? What's point 2? First, is it a mallee seep? The second one is, where's the excellent work? Where is the excess water coming from? So when I look around, what's your thoughts on that? Where do you think that the water that's causing this problem might be coming from?
Over there.
1, 2, 3.
All right, so if I ask Lockie, who's the local farmer, where do you think it's coming from?
Up here on this sand, it's stony up there.
Yeah.
So it'll just be up top of this sandy rise here.
So that's where your local knowledge is important, but also where I pointed out when we looked at the NDVI picture, which unfortunately I didn't bring with me, but yeah, that ridge there is, you can see that it's a bit of stone through there, so it's not what's contributing through there, but this is the really gutless sands around here, really clearly picked up from the NDVI, so it's obviously coming down this way, and you can just see, I guess, from the flow of the water or the lines and stuff, you can see that it's sort of seeping out of this and heading in that sort of direction. So,
What time of the year did you do the NVDI?
what was that?
What time of the year was the snowstorm?
So we talked about that before, that if you're looking to know where there might be a perched water table, you're looking at your NDVI images of October, November, where the crop is senesced but what's staying greener for longer. And in this case here, I'm so sorry I don't have the picture with me, but this whole area was on the outside of this scald was all staying greener right through November, and then right around the base of this sand hill there's another area that's really getting sloppy around the corner, which Richard showed that. So that's really important for seeing how big the perched water table might be and how big the threat of potential this could grow to if nothing is done. And it's obviously could be at least 5 or 6, 7 hectares around the base of this hill. But the other thing is, when you're looking at where the water might be coming from, that's where you look at August or September NDVIs, we can look at, okay, these are the areas that are growing really well, but often the gutless sands are showing a lot poorer growth, and so they're like a yellower colour, not a purple green colour on the NDVI, and so that's a bit of an indication as to where that excess water is coming through the system. And also probably over summer, when you get the summer rains, there's more gutless sand that the water's going to flow straight through to these areas. So, oh my goodness, all happening here. And just to confirm that we do have a mallee seep, it's only just dug this hole very recently, but there we go, sloppy clay. So we will be able to get a good water sample here. So we've gone through, is it a mallee seep? Yes. Where's the water coming from? We've assessed the landscape. We believe it's coming out of these gutless sands, coming down through this area. And obviously it's scalded out here because the impervious clay layer, the Blanchetown clay, must be reasonably close to the surface that's holding up this water as it flows and bringing it in to cause these problems on the ground. Even though this is not the lowest part in the landscape, it's obviously where the impervious clay layer, the Blanchetown clay here, is closer to the surface and causing this seep problem here. All right, so what's the, we're to number 3. Yes, what's the third point that we need to do in assessing a mallee seep?
Taste the water.
Not yet. Hold that thought. What stage is it at? Okay, so is this at the really early stage? Is it at the medium, moderate stage? Or is it at the more later, severe, established stage? We showed you lots of pictures, and obviously on the MSF website, Mallee Seep's Decision Tree, there's lots of pictures of how you can choose which one you're at. What's your thoughts about this one? Yes,
I wouldn't say severe, but you're getting close to it. I was going to. You can't utilise it though.
all good thoughts. If somebody can continue to be digging this down while I'm talking, that would be good. Jeremy, because we're going to put the Piezomiter there, save some time. When I'm sort of assessing this, yes, it's not at the early stage because you've got these big bare scalded areas, so it's not an area that I would just think you can suddenly quickly bring into cropping again if we fix some things. It's probably a bit big to be dragging a whole lot of sand over the top and just then cropping over the top. So I'm probably putting it into the intermediate middle stage. It's not a real established white crusty. I imagine it's fairly white and crusty over the summer. Does it get a bit or not?
No, it's not too bad.
Okay, so it's probably, I'll probably play it in that intermediate stage, but the main thing is that remember the two main aims of any seep management is to establish living soil cover over the surface, and the second is to stop the flow. So in that intermediate stage, I'd be looking at, right, we need to get Puxinalia on this. You're already cropping around it, so you're not going to be upset. The main thing is if it's left bare, it's just going to get saltier and saltier, quicker and quicker, and then it will get to that established stage and get harder to rehabilitate. Whereas, as you might have seen when we drove through, did you see the seep we just drove through on the track? What did you see there? Yeah, and that was Puxinalia. And so we know that Puxinalia will grow and cover these areas, and that topsoil is actually returning back to health because of that. And some of that's been there over a year, but the last 12 months it's probably filled in completely, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's done really well.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that spreading at all? Where it shouldn't be?
No.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I've never seen noticed that Puxinalia to cause a problem in cropping land. Some tall wheatgrass, some people don't, they're a bit concerned about that, but I've never actually seen that as a problem. The thing with tall wheatgrass, it becomes very tufty, like a veldtgrass type thing. So
Is there another name for tall wheatgrass? Do we only know it as tall wheatgrass?
I only know it as tall wheatgrass. I don't know the scientific name.
Oh, no, I wasn't
off the
asking.
top of my head.
Sometimes we have other names that we can relate to. That's
No. So that's the third thing that we need to establish. And yes, we're in this sort of, I'd say, this moderate, intermediate stage where, you know, I think we can really do something and bring it back quickly if we manage to stop the flow in and get cover over it, and then maybe if we've stopped that flow, lowered this water table, bring it back to cropping. So that'd be good, wouldn't it, Lockie?
It'd be nice.
It would be nice. All right.
I don't get the phone call that I'm bogged and the seeding.
Well, what's going to stop you getting bogged?
zoning and interstate drive here.
So some Piezomiter around it?
Lowering that water
Lowering
table.
the water table?
So at the moment it's sort of sitting at about, I don't know, 60 centimetres, and my understand that could well come up to about 30 centimetres after we've finished leave it for 24 hours. All right, so what's the fourth thing we need to assess or measure?
Test the water. And I've seen how brown it is. Don't make us drink that.
Test the water. So now did I bring, hopefully I've got the, oh yes, it's here. I just, Jeremy, can you just take over and get a water sample? I'll just get a cup to put it in, okay? Is
Kylie,
that all
can
right?
you? Where's the cup?
Is the cup in the
Just under my back set, in the, yeah, on the, yes. I'll grab it.
What you could do, Lockie's what the dudes at horticulture do. You just drill a hole until you get down to nearly China and just drain it all away with a harpoon boat.
I have tried to dig through it with tobacco.
Oh, is that right?
All right, so just pour some water in there. So I just, I had one of these busts recently, so I've just made this yesterday, I think. So it's just a little bit of poly pipe there, and I actually put a little nut in there to give it a bit of a weight. So anyway, all good. So here, generally when you're at a seep site, your water table will be within a metre and a half. But there was one in the Miller which I went down 2.8 metres and still found a water table that was affecting the surface, which is quite surprising. All right, so initially, perhaps one more, that'll be good. I'm going to do a taste test here. Oh, you can have that for breakfast. So I'm not actually tasting that as salty at all. So I'm suggesting this is probably within 2,000 parts per million or around 3 DSE. So I can, but the main thing is that it's in the low to mild stage of salinity. So I'm just doing a test here, and it is going to tell me it's very dirty. I'm saying about 5.6 decisiemens, which is probably around 3 to 4,000 parts per million. So yeah, so
I was going to say something wrong with your tongue.
yeah, that's right. There's now you speak of it. Must be all the clay in there. But yeah, so there's a little salt tinge to it, and they pick that up in some of the blackness in these layers as well. But something I'd still be happy to feed that to stock, and so it means, I guess, from a management point of view, it means that with that sort of water level, then you can easily bring your lucerne, which is your most effective way of dropping this water table, in as close as possible. I'd sort of be sewing a ring around here, even coming over into the scald, and you know that it can survive a drink and hopefully dry this out within 12 months of growing well. So I guess that comes to the fifth point, which I've jumped into. Anyway, what's the fifth assessment thing that you need to think in your 5-point assessment plan?
What can we grow here?
what can you do to fix the problem? Yes. And that's where you refer to the Mallee Seep decision tree, and it gives you a whole lot of options based on those first four choices that you've got to make. About, is it a Mallee Seep? Where's the water coming from? What stage is the seep at? And then what's the salinity level? And that will guide you into a number of clear options and videos that you can look at of people that have successfully managed it using different techniques. And so Lockie, what you're thinking, what would you do here? You're the farmer here. How do you think we can fix this?
Well, actually, in the cropping season this year, spread some lucerne around the seeps in August, hopefully, because it was getting quite a bit of rain. Thought it might grow, but it didn't. So I think spreading it's not much chop. I'll have to actually